PS4's Crash Bandicoot n.sane trilogy has crushed my wife's spirit.
Bandicoot n.sane trilogy difficulty warning.
Makes The Binding of Isaac feel like a summer getaway.
Delightful, gorgeous, and really frustrating.
A gorgeous remaster that's perhaps a little too faithful.
Why, Crash Bandicoot n.sane trilogy is the Dark Souls of PS4!
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
We all have those games we really cherish. Games we played as bright-eyed, know-nothing childerfolk, endlessly enjoying our well-worn pastimes until we were masters of our craft. Being the knight in shining armor style heroes of the digital world we inhabited, crafting a world of enjoyment for our non-existent residents to enjoy, or generally being a nuisance until the game said stop. Under the innocent, unassuming eye of the youngin', the cracks in this mural of a masterpiece we call a game go unnoticed. Then puberty hits us like a Mack truck going on the I-5 and ruins everything. The games we once thought were perfect, almost like us with our wrinkles and disjointed hips, start to show their age. Maybe the controls don't feel quite right. Maybe the camera's a bit buggy. Or maybe it was just plain bad. But one criticism seems more commonplace nowadays. In the current times of the late 2010s, remakes and remasters of ye olde mascot platformer have been the name of the game. With our little orange marsupial friend leading the way and his tiny purple dragon friend now just escaping the jaws of Give Us More Money the series, the games have been generally well accepted and well liked, and the atmosphere and the animations, charm, character, and gameplay all lovingly recreated from the ground up by people who obviously cared about these projects. But in spite of all the praise, in spite of all the glory, in spite of all the fanfare, one pervasive question still remains. Were these games really that hard? It seems like no matter what game gets remade, no matter what game gets re-released, if it's a platformer, difficulty is always an issue. Several gaming outlets cite the difficulty of these games as one of the major, if not the major issue they have with the game. Crash Bandicoot is too hard, Spyro is too hard, hell, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is too hard!
New Super Mario Bros. Wii is a tough game, old school tough, so you better bring your butt-stomping A-game, as this will test even the most seasoned platforming veterans.
Yeah, I realize Donkey already said that, but it doesn't make it any less true. And should we not forget the whole Cuphead tutorial thing a while back that was... Oh boy, that sucked! It started with Crash, the endearing orange marsupial who has an attitude so goofy, so earnest, so happy that he could charm the pants off of anyone. E3 2016, it was finally announced at the Sony panel that after nearly 10 years without a game to his name, the Bandicoot was back. In Skylanders! Also, there was this remake thing going on, not that important, really. And on June 30th, 2017, it came to us. A year-long Sony exclusive known as Crash Bandicoot n.sane trilogy. The three classic games from the era where Crash was king, re-released with a solid HD upgrade, updated mechanics, and a whole lot of love. Vicarious Visions put their blood, sweat, and tears into making sure this remaster was the pinnacle of Crash Bandicoot platforming. And wow, what a game we got. The visuals were incredible, the sounds were crisp, and the music, oh, it was funky! Nostalgia hit this particular gamer like a 2-ton, fully loaded semi! Really? You gotta notify me of something right now? Fuck off, dude. I said knock it off! Nostalgia hit this gamer like a 2-ton, fully loaded semi, and the general consensus was that this was a remaster for the ages, getting positive reviews left and right, winning multiple awards. Oh, what a time to be a Crash fan! Then, something happened. Something that would change the course of Crash Bandicoot and platforming forever. It all started with a simple title of a simple review on a simple website. Crash Bandicoot n.sane trilogy review makes The Binding of Isaac feel like a summer getaway.
What?
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 You fucking what, mate?
What are you, fucking moron?
The first time I saw that title, I had to do a double take. By the time I saw it, I'd completed all 3 games 100%, except for time trial relics because fuck those things. And I had to wonder, where exactly is this coming from? I've played both The Binding of Isaac and Crash, and I definitely wouldn't consider Isaac the way harder by a long shot. So I decided to look into things.
However, and you knew this was coming, what it also means is that Vicarious Visions has had to bring the feel of Crash to effectively a brand new modern slate. PS4 demands the exact platforming controls required to navigate relentless levels, and sometimes it just doesn't deliver. As someone who could play many of the original levels with their eyes closed after hours of agonizing practice, SHH, I had books too. Okay, it's difficult to get used to, regardless of whether you steer with the directional buttons or the analog stick. The first game especially is utterly unforgiving. I still don't know the quite right way to play, switching back and forth desperately between control schemes hoping one will eventually click. The stick feels far too unwieldy for exact jumps, while the D-pad can't quite match the twitch controls of the original. While this is sometimes caused by 1990's IXS level design that makes The Binding of Isaac feel like a summer getaway, it's frustrating to come to terms with the fact that you know how to make that jump perfectly. It's just not nearly as easy to do it here.
Okay, so apparently the controls are to blame. So I went back and played the game paying specific attention to the controls, and they worked fine for me. They were tight, responsive, and perfect for Crash. So maybe it was the archaic level design. And while depth perception took a bit of getting used to, I adjusted fine after a few levels and was blasting through them without much problem, save for a few rough spots. But that's to be expected with older games. We all have that one part of the game we dread, the one part we just loathe to our core, but that's commonplace, that's the norm. I believe TV Tropes defines it as that one level. Stormy Ascent, the Fire Dragons in Spyro 3, and I'm pretty sure that I'm giving plenty of ukulele players PTSD by mentioning car toss. So I'm not going to argue about that. The game can be rough at times, and certain levels can be a bitch. But making The Binding of Isaac feel like a summer getaway? I think that's going a bit too far. The Binding of Isaac is a roguelike which was made purposefully brutal so that every single victory felt like you earned it. It took a combination of pattern memorization, split-second reactions, dead aim, and a lot of RNG goodness to complete a run. There were a lot of factors pushing against you, even the parts where it seems downright unwinnable without RNGesus being on your side. Crash, on the other hand, is a game designed with a specific solution in mind. Every time you play it, the solution is exactly the same and RNG plays no part in it. The point is to try again, learning exactly what needs to be done and then perfecting what needs to be done in order to pass the level with the highest box count possible until you get them all. How can you compare a game where your run could be easier or harder depending on RNG to a game where every level has a set difficulty and can, with practice, be beaten in a single shot? But I get it, some of Crash's levels are frustrating and it can really try the patience. But it's doable with a little practice and pattern recognition. Then they say this.
But then there's the death. There's just no escaping it. There might be brand new death animations to keep you entertained. Oh look, I've been swallowed by a lion again. But there's no avoiding that. The controls just mean that Crash Bandicoot has become. It's a horrible shame. After being so excited for the remaster, there's just no avoiding that. The n.sane trilogy and you aren't going to get along for a while. When it takes sheer willpower to survive the original's first island when you've played the game for years, you know something has gone wrong somewhere. Those coming in fresh to the franchise aren't going to know what's hit them. Sure, it's big, beautiful, and positively packed with charm, but it's time to... I love the n.sane trilogy in its new roguelite form, but some things will definitely frustrate those new to the franchise looking to find out what all the fuss is about.
Roguelite? Roguelite?! What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Crash is a platformer, not a fucking rogue- Are you kidding me? Dark Souls is a game where the enemies have complex AI and require split-second reactions from the player in order to dodge and counterattack constantly. Or so I've heard. I've never actually played Dark Souls. Okay, we get it. The entire point is reacting to your enemy's tells and taking advantage of the opportunity. It falls on the player to react and adapt to things that the game might throw you that you didn't see coming. That's what makes it so hard. In Crash Bandicoot, it's a series of platforming stages with monotonous, repetitive obstacles that constantly stay the same and test pattern recognition and timing. There's almost nothing reactionary about it. The level is clearly laid out in front of you, and it's up to you to try and figure out how to get around it. That's why speedrunners adore platformers, because everything is the same in each run, and each run can be boiled down to a fine science. Platformers have minimal surprises. Everything within a platforming level is placed deliberately so the same strategies always work. Maybe it's the fact that the punishments are the same. What happens when you die in Dark Souls? Well, I don't know, but from what I gather, you lose all of your stuff and get sent back to a previous point in time. What happens in Crash Bandicoot when you die? Well, the exact same thing. You lose all of your progress, you lose everything you've collected up until that point, and you get reset back to a previous point. And this normally isn't really a problem in Crash, as you have checkpoints to mitigate that kind of thing. But the damn color gem levels are just...
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, I'm not gonna defend these. These are crap. I mean, you have to complete the entire level in a single run and get all of the boxes. And two of the hardest levels in the game, Slippery Climb and the Lab, are a part of these colored gem levels in which you can't die a single time. So yeah, those are difficult, but it's not Dark Souls hard. But by now, the damage was already done. Crash was now Dark Souls. And a lot of people made fun of it, but it was still not an apt comparison. And what's worse, the trend is continuing with Spyro.
Something that could have also done with some tweaking is the game's difficulty, which seems to ricochet between too easy and almost impossible. In classic Spyro fashion, many of the grunt-level enemies can be defeated with a simple fire blast or charge, while flying levels require pinpoint accuracy and speed. And the bosses, including that damn Toad, are frustratingly punishing. Rather than presenting a fair challenge, defeating Buzz felt like repeatedly banging my head on a brick wall due to the limited hints given to guide the player. The breakneck shift in difficulty, meanwhile, felt like I'd suddenly been dropped into Dark Souls in the middle of a game of tiddlywinks. Defeating this oversized Toad was more relief than a triumph, and unfortunately many of Reignited's bosses also fall prey to this pattern.
When I heard the sorceress was planning to ambush you, I got here as fast as I could. No worries though. This wussy green toad will be no match for the two of us.
Seriously, this journalist couldn't beat Buzz, the easiest boss in the entire game, whose pattern is ram, jump, ram, jump, then run! Repeat ad nauseum for a while until dead. How? Now I realize that these difficulty claims change on a case-by-case basis. Some people may find Crash Bandicoot hard, some people may find Puyo Puyo hard, some people may find Tetris hard, some people may find Sonic hard, some people may find Dark Souls hard, and I know somewhere out there there's a man who's looking at all of this saying, that shit's easy. But the general consensus is that platformers are really hard. You hear it everywhere. Why?
He puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before.
It's easy to pin on archaic level design and tweak controls, but could it be aesthetic choices? Allow me to borrow a word from Geek Critique from his video on Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Link in the description.
I actually bought a copy of Returns off of a dad at a game store during the production of this episode. He told me his kid loved Donkey Kong, and it looked like a game they'd enjoy, but his son had never even made it out of the first world because it was too hard. Games as challenging as Returns just don't look like this anymore. They look like this, or this. They feature mature themes. There's nary a sign of sentient cartoon animals.
That got me thinking. It's not that these games are actually hard, it's that people don't expect games this cartoony to be hard. And as horror games have taught us, when something sneaks up on you, it has a greater effect. These games are not as hard as Dark Souls, but their surprising amount of difficulty when compared to the approachable nature of the games was indeed a sucker punch to most. In today's gaming climate, difficult games tend to be portrayed with a much darker, gritty aesthetic, with realism and dread reigning king. Most difficult games have you wearing armor, or looking down the barrel of a gun, or facing off against twisted shoggoths of the unknown that just... Oh god, that's ugly! Oh god, kill it! Oh, what the fuck? Meanwhile, cute cartoony platformers are nowadays largely seen as kids stuff, even though they offer a challenge for adults and experienced gamers as well. The problem isn't that Crash or Spyro are hard, it's that Crash isn't looking down the barrel of a gun, and Spyro isn't fighting a giant realistic dragon with intent to kill. These games are approachable and fun, with lightheartedness strewn throughout, so when difficulty is discovered, it seems out of place, because as the saying goes, you know, for kids. Or maybe I'm just great and everyone else needs to get good.